Run now! You attacked the wrong species. The first human response to the invasion wasn't panic. It was laughter. Not the hysterical kind. Not the kind born from fear. It was the dry, exhausted chuckle of a species that had seen too much history, and recognized the pattern immediately. The message came from orbit, translated into every known human language within seconds. By decree of the sovereign dominion of Karzul, your world is now property of the Empire. Surrender peacefully and your extinction will be efficient. There was a pause. Then Earth responded. Not with missiles. Not with a desperate plea. Just one sentence, broadcast across every frequency, every channel, every hacked alien relay. Run! High Admiral Turvak of the Karzul Dominion didn't understand humor. That was his first mistake. He floated in the command well of his dreadnought, staring at the translated response with four cold, calculating eyes. Around him, his officers shifted uneasily. Run? One of them repeated. Turvak's mandibles flexed in irritation. Primitive defiance. Psychological resistance is expected. But Admiral, another officer said, they broadcast it without encryption. As if they wanted us to hear it clearly. Turvak dismissed the concern with a wave. They are a fractured species. Thousands of political factions. No unified command. No galactic allies. No fleet. He zoomed in on the planetary scan. Primitive satellites. Chemical propulsion craft. Nuclear stockpiles. Barbaric. Predictable. Begin planetary pacification, he ordered. Below, Earth rotated in quiet indifference. General Marcus Hale hadn't laughed. He just exhaled slowly, like a man who'd been expecting this exact nightmare for decades. They finally came, he muttered. Across the underground war room, screens flickered with incoming data. Orbital signatures. Energy readings. Unknown weapon configurations. A young officer looked pale. Sir, we can't win this. Hale glanced at him. You're right, he said calmly. The room went silent. Then Hale stepped forward, tapping a console. The lights dimmed, and a single file appeared on every screen. Project Backfire. Winning, Hale continued, was never the plan. The first strike from the Karzul fleet was surgical. Orbital lances of white-hot energy carved through military installations across the globe. Bases vanished. Airfields became glass. Fleets burned before they could even scramble. It was efficient. Clinical. Exactly how Turvak liked it. Minimal resistance, an officer reported. Their defenses are collapsing faster than projected. Turvak nodded. As expected. But then something strange happened. The humans didn't retreat in panic. They didn't beg. They didn't even try to negotiate. Instead, they started launching things. Thousands of objects blasted from the planet's surface. Not missiles, at least, not in any conventional sense. Pods. Capsules. Scrap metal constructs barely holding together under the strain of atmospheric exit. Turvak frowned. Intercept. The Dominion's defense grid lit up. Beams sliced through the incoming swarm. Explosions filled orbit. Debris scattered. But the humans didn't stop. More launches. More pods. Hundreds, then thousands. What are they doing? One officer whispered. Turvak's irritation deepened. Desperation. But deep down, something cold and unfamiliar crept into his mind. Because desperation usually had a pattern. This didn't. General Hale watched the launches from a reinforced bunker deep beneath what used to be Colorado. Phase 1 is complete, an aide reported. Hale nodded. Casualties? Severe. Expected, Hale said flatly. He stared at the screen as another wave of pods broke through the atmosphere. Each one carried something precious. Not weapons. Not soldiers. Seeds. DNA archives. Cultural data. Entire fragments of humanity, fired blindly into the void. Back up the species, Hale murmured. Scatter us so wide they'll never finish the job. The aide hesitated. Sir, what about Earth? Hale's jaw tightened. That's Phase 2. The Karzul fleet tightened its grip. Orbital dominance was absolute now. Human resistance had degraded to scattered ground engagements, brutal, but insignificant. Turvak allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Prepare the occupation forces. But then the anomaly reports began flooding in. Admiral, we're detecting unusual radiation signatures across multiple continents. Source? Unknown. But they're increasing rapidly. Another officer turned eyes wide. Sir, the planet's core temperature is rising. Turvak froze. That's not possible. Yet the data didn't lie. Seismic activity spiked worldwide. Oceans churned violently. Atmospheric composition began to shift. What have they done? Someone whispered. Turvak's mind raced. Then the realization hit him like a kinetic strike. They're destroying their own world. General Hale stood alone as the alarms blared. Phase 2 initiated, the AI announced calmly. Deep beneath the surface, ancient systems roared to life. Machines buried decades ago, some even older, awakened with a singular purpose. Earth wasn't just a planet. It was a weapon. A contingency humanity had built in its darkest hours, when they first realized they might not be alone in the universe. If we can have it, Hale said quietly. No one does. He closed his eyes for a brief moment. Then he gave the final order. Execute backfire. From orbit, Turvak watched in horror. The blue planet below began to change. Cracks spread across continents like spiderwebs. Volcanoes erupted in synchronized fury. The oceans themselves seemed to boil. And then the energy readings spiked beyond comprehension. Admiral, an officer choked. We need to withdraw, now. Turvak didn't respond. He couldn't. Because for the first time in his long, victorious career, he understood the message. Run. And they hadn't listened. The explosion didn't come all at once. It started as a pulse. A blinding wave of energy that surged outward from the planet's core, ripping through crust, mantle, and ocean alike. Then Earth broke. Fragments of a world became a storm of fire and death, expanding outward with unstoppable force. The Karzul fleet tried to escape. Some ships made it. Most didn't. And as the shockwave consumed them, one final human transmission cut through the chaos. You wanted Earth. A pause. You should have asked what it costs. Ashes don't stay dead. The galaxy didn't notice Earth's death right away. It wasn't important enough. Just another minor system at the fringe of map space, consumed in the aftermath of a routine conquest. The Karzul Dominion reported it as a Pyrrhic anomaly, unexpected planetary instability, heavy fleet losses, but ultimate strategic success. That was the official story. High Admiral Turvak knew better. He had survived. Barely. His flagship limped through the void, hull scorched, entire sections vented to vacuum. Of the Grand Invasion fleet, less than a quarter remained operational. The rest were drifting coffins or expanding debris fields around the shattered remains of Earth. And the worst part? There were no bodies. No surrender. No victory. Just silence. They destroyed their own world. One of his officers said again, as if repeating it would somehow make sense this time. Turvak didn't answer. He kept staring at the long-range scans. Because something was still moving out there. 3 weeks after Earth's destruction, the first Karzul salvage teams arrived. The Dominion didn't waste resources, not even on disasters. If there was debris, there was value. Ships descended into the expanding asteroid field, weaving through molten rock, frozen oceans, and fragments of a civilization that had chosen annihilation over submission. Radiation levels are stabilizing, a technician reported. We can begin extraction. Focus on technological remnants, the salvage commander ordered. Anything intact, anything unusual. There was a pause. Then, Commander, we've found something. It wasn't a ship. Not exactly. It looked like one of the pods the humans had launched during the invasion, crude, asymmetrical, barely functional by Dominion standards. Except this one was intact, floating silently among the wreckage. No power signature. No movement. No threat. "Bring it in," the commander said. They should have destroyed it. That was the second mistake. The pod was hauled into the hangar bay, surrounded by armed guards and scanning drones. Up close, it looked even more primitive. Welded plates. Manual latches. A viewport scratched and blackened from heat. "Life signs?" the commander asked. A technician frowned. "Negative." Another paused, then added, "Wait, no? There's something. Faint. Very faint." The commander tilted his head. "Open it." "Sir, protocol." "Open it." The latches hissed. The door creaked. And inside was a man. He looked dead. Burned. Broken. Wrapped in what remained of a pressure suit. His face was partially obscured, his body motionless. "Human," one guard muttered. "Impossible. They launched thousands of these," another replied. "Some were bound to survive." The commander stepped closer, studying the figure. "So this is what they look like," he said quietly. There was something unsettling about it. Not the appearance. Not the injuries. It was the stillness. Like a coiled spring that hadn't realized it had been released yet. "Scan him," the commander ordered. A drone floated forward, emitting a soft hum as it analyzed the body. "Vital signs minimal," it reported. "Neural activity, present but suppressed. Subject appears to be in a controlled stasis." "Controlled?" the commander repeated. "By this?" He gestured at the crude pod. "That's not possible." And then the human opened his eyes. It wasn't dramatic. No sudden movement. No violent outburst. Just eyes. Clear. Focused. Awake. The nearest guard didn't even have time to react. The human moved faster than anything in the room. One moment he was lying still. The next he was standing, ripping the weapon from the guard's grasp and using it in the same motion. A burst of energy tore through the first line of soldiers. Chaos exploded. "Contain it!" the commander roared. But it was already too late. Turvac received the transmission in real time. At first, it looked like a malfunction, shaky footage, distorted audio, bodies hitting the deck. Then he saw it. A single human. Unarmed, no, not unarmed. Improvising. Adapting. Dominion soldiers fell around him like they were made of glass. "Is this live?" Turvac demanded. "Yes, Admiral," an officer replied, voice trembling. "It's coming from salvage vessel Theta 9. Turvac leaned forward, all four eyes locked on the screen. The human moved like a predator. Not reckless. Not enraged. Precise. Every action calculated. Every strike efficient. This wasn't desperation. This was training. "What is that?" one officer whispered. Turvac didn't answer. Because deep down, he already knew. This wasn't a survivor. This was something they had sent. The human reached the command deck in under 3 minutes. The commander barely had time to draw his weapon. "Wait!" he shouted. "We can negotiate." The human tilted his head slightly. Confused. "Negotiate?" he repeated. His voice was rough, like it hadn't been used in a long time. Then he smiled. It wasn't friendly. "You blew up my planet," he said. And then he pulled the trigger. The transmission cut out. Silence filled the command bridge of Turvac's flagship. No one spoke. No one moved. Finally, one officer managed to ask the question none of them wanted answered. "Admiral, how many of those pods escaped?" Turvac's gaze drifted back to the data logs. Thousands launched. Hundreds unaccounted for. Dozens, confirmed missing beyond the blast radius. He felt something unfamiliar crawl up his spine. Not fear. No. Something worse. Understanding. They weren't evacuating, he said slowly. They were deploying. General Marcus Hale wasn't supposed to be alive. Officially, he had died with Earth. Unofficially, he opened his eyes to the cold hum of a distant starship engine. Different ship. Different system. Same mission. Around him, dozens of other pods were opening. Men. Women. Some barely more than kids. All waking up. All silent. All carrying the same look in their eyes. Not grief. Not shock. Purpose. A young soldier looked at Hale. Sir, is it over? Hale sat up slowly, wincing as old injuries reminded him they hadn't been left behind with the planet. He shook his head. No, he said. Then he looked out at the stars. They think they won. A faint, humorless smile crossed his face. Let's not correct them just yet. Across the galaxy, scattered among debris fields, hidden in asteroid belts, drifting in the dark between stars, human pods opened. Not refugees. Not survivors. Something far more dangerous. Seeds had been planted. And the galaxy had no idea what was about to grow. We don't fight wars. We become them. The first Dominion world burned quietly. No grand fleet. No warning. Just a refinery station orbiting a gas giant in the outer Karzul territories. Routine, unimportant, replaceable. Until it went dark. Supervisor Kelvar was halfway through a status report when the alarms began. At first, it was minor, pressure fluctuations, power inconsistencies. The kind of thing maintenance crews handled without interrupting command. Then the gravity shifted. Not dramatically. Just enough to make every instinct in his body scream. Report, he snapped. A technician stuttered. Sir, we're detecting unauthorized access to core systems. From where? I don't know, it's like it's already inside. Kelvar's frills tightened. Lock down the station. Too late. The cameras flickered. One by one, entire corridors went black. Then they came back online. And showed nothing. Empty halls. Open doors. Missing personnel. Where are the workers? Someone whispered. Kelvar didn't answer. Because deep down, he already knew the truth. They weren't missing. They were gone. The first body was found in engineering. No sign of struggle. No weapon discharge. Just a single, precise wound, clean, efficient, final. Then another. Then 10 more. Each one identical. Each one deliberate. This isn't sabotage, Kelvar said, his voice tightening. This is hunting. The transmission reached High Admiral Turvac within minutes. He watched in silence as the footage played. Corridors. Bodies. Shadows moving just out of frame. Thermal scans? He asked. Negative, an officer replied. Whatever it is, it's masking itself. Not masking, Turvac corrected slowly. Adapting. Kelvar sealed himself in the command center. Reinforced doors. Automated turrets. Full sensor coverage. If anything tried to enter, it would be vaporized. Let it come, he muttered. The lights flickered. Then went out. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing the room in dim red light. Kelvar's breathing slowed. Controlled. Measured. He was Dominion. He was not prey. A faint sound echoed through the darkness. Footsteps. Soft. Unhurried. Show yourself! He barked. Silence. Then a voice. Close. Too close. You locked the door, it said. Kelvar spun. Nothing there. But you didn't lock me out. The voice continued. And then the human stepped into the light. It wasn't wearing armor. No advanced weaponry. Just a scavenged suit, scarred and patched together from a dozen different sources. And eyes. Cold. Focused. Patient. Kelvar fired. The turrets fired. The room lit up with energy blasts. When the smoke cleared, the human was gone. Turvac leaned forward as the footage distorted. What happened? He demanded. We lost visual, the officer said. Sensors are scrambled. The feed returned. Kelvar was on his knees. The human stood behind him, one hand resting lightly on his shoulder. Almost casual. You built an empire, the human said. Kelvar's voice trembled. We can offer terms, resources, technology. The human chuckled. You still think this is about winning? Kelvar swallowed. Then what is it about? The human leaned closer. Making sure you never try again. And then the feed cut. The refinery station self-destructed 30 seconds later. No survivors. No explanation. Just another quiet loss in a growing list of anomalies. It wasn't an isolated incident. It was a pattern. Supply lines collapsed. Outposts vanished. Ships drifted into ports with entire crews missing. And always, there was evidence. Not of battle. Of precision. They're not engaging us directly. What of Turvak's strategists said? They're dismantling us. Piece by piece, another added. Psychological warfare, a third suggested. Instill fear, destabilize command. No, Turvak interrupted. They all turned to him. This isn't psychological, he said quietly. This is personal. Because he had seen the recordings. Intercepted fragments of human communication. Not orders. Not commands. Conversations. Laughter. Arguments. Stories. They weren't acting like soldiers. They were acting like something far worse. Hunters who had already decided the outcome. On a distant asteroid, far from any Dominion patrol routes, General Hale stood before a group of newly awakened operatives. Some were veterans. Some had never seen combat before Earth fell. All of them had lost everything. We don't have a fleet, Hale said. We don't have a home. He let that settle. What we have is time. A woman stepped forward. Sir, what's the objective? Hale looked at her. Then at the others. The same thing it's always been, he said. Survive. A pause. Then his expression hardened. And make them regret helping us do it. The strategy was simple. Too simple. No central command. No predictable movements. No uniform tactics. Each cell operated independently. Adapting. Evolving. Learning from every encounter. If one failed, the others adjusted. If one succeeded, the knowledge spread. It wasn't a military campaign. It was an infection. The Dominion tried to respond. They deployed hunter-killer units. Enhanced tracking systems. Even experimental bioscanners designed to detect human physiology. It didn't matter. Because every time they thought they understood the enemy changed. They're studying us, one scientist reported. Of course they are, Turvak replied. No, Admiral, you don't understand. They're not just studying our technology. The scientist hesitated. They're studying us. Patterns of behavior. Command structures. Decision-making processes. Even emotional responses. The humans were learning how the Dominion thought. And then using it against them. A fleet was rerouted based on falsified distress signals. A planetary governor executed his own advisors after receiving perfectly forged orders. Entire divisions turned on each other, convinced they had been infiltrated. Chaos spread faster than any weapon. Turvak stood alone in his command chamber, staring at the growing list of losses. This wasn't war. Not the kind he understood. There were no battle lines. No decisive engagements. No victory conditions. Just erosion. They're turning our strength into a weakness, one officer said. Our size, our structure, it makes us predictable. Turvak closed his eyes briefly. And they have no structure, he murmured. No center to destroy. When he opened them again, there was something new in his gaze. Not arrogance. Not confidence. Recognition. We didn't invade a species, he said. We triggered one. On the edge of known space, Hale received the latest reports. Dozens of successful operations. Minimal losses. Maximum disruption. A perfect asymmetrical war. But he didn't smile. Because he knew the truth. This wasn't sustainable. Not forever. Eventually, the Dominion would adapt. Eventually, they would learn. And when they did, the real war would begin. A young operative approached him. "Sir, what happens when they figure us out?" Hale looked out into the void. "You attacked the wrong species." The first time the Dominion realized it, it was too late. High Admiral Turvak's fleet emerged from hyperspace above what had once been the colony world of Virek 9. 100,000 soldiers. Dreadnoughts bristling with weapons. Orbital bombardment ready to turn cities into glass. And waiting for them, scattered across the void like shadows in a storm, were the humans. Not in ships, not in traditional fleets, but in pods. Each one had traveled light years silently, hidden in debris fields, asteroid belts, even derelict Dominion transport vessels. They had studied the Dominion, learned their signals, memorized their patrol patterns, and mastered the art of patience. Then, when the humans struck, it wasn't a battle. It was a revelation. Entire fleets were annihilated before they could even respond. Hyperdrives overloaded, targeting arrays reversed, internal systems sabotaged from within. Ships turned against each other. Dreadnoughts exploded in synchronized eruptions across orbit. Communications went dark. Command structures collapsed under the weight of chaos. And in the center of it all, General Marcus Hale stood on a captured command platform. He didn't need to shout orders. None were necessary. Every human operative acted as if reading the same mind, instinctively coordinated. It was flawless. Turvak's 4 eyes widened. This wasn't possible. Not in any logical projection. Not in any war doctrine. Humans were not supposed to win. "They're everywhere," a trembling officer whispered. How are they controlling this?" "They adapt," Turvak said, his voice low, a whisper of disbelief. "They learn. They evolve. Every encounter makes them stronger." He realized the truth all at once. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were a storm the Dominion had failed to predict. Every attempt at dominance, every calculation, every tactic the Dominion had relied on was being turned into a weakness. Their arrogance had become their undoing. On the ground, the humans moved like shadows. Not a single one hesitated. Small teams infiltrated command centers, capturing Dominion officers, turning their own weapons against them. Explosions erupted in the streets, but not indiscriminately. Every strike was precise, surgical, terrifying in its efficiency. And the humans laughed. Not the laughter of joy. Not the laughter of malice. But the laughter of inevitability. A young operative, barely more than a teenager, ducked behind a smoldering turret and radioed Hale. "Sir, they're retreating." Hale shook his head, smiling faintly. "No. They're not retreating. They're running." Because that was the difference. Humans didn't just destroy enemies, they dismantled their will to fight. They didn't just kill, they delivered lessons, unforgettable and brutal. They didn't conquer, they survived, thrived, and turned their enemies' strength against them. Turvak's flagship was the last to fall. Alone, crippled, drifting above the ruined planet. He sat in silence as the human forces approached. Not a single weapon fired against him. They didn't need to. Hale appeared on the observation deck. The humans surrounding him didn't move, but their presence was everywhere, filling the room with quiet menace. Hale regarded Turvak calmly. "You attacked the wrong species," Hale said, his voice low and steady. "We warned you. Run now, or die knowing you were foolish enough to think you could own us." Turvak opened his mandibles to respond, but no words came. He had expected rage, fear, maybe desperation. But this was different. It was certainty. It was inevitability. Hale leaned forward slightly. "We don't fight wars the way you do. We survive them. And when you make a mistake of this magnitude," he let the pause hang, "you pay for it. The Dominion never recovered. Worlds fell, one by one, under coordinated human strikes that the galaxy would remember for centuries. But it wasn't just about revenge, it was a statement. Humans had been underestimated, dismissed, written off as primitive, fractured, insignificant. They weren't. Every ship destroyed, every colony liberated, every Dominion officer captured carried a message. Humanity would not be tamed, would not be controlled, and would not forgive. Hale stood on the bridge of a captured command vessel, looking at a galaxy in chaos. One operative beside him asked quietly, "Sir, did we go too far?" Hale's gaze lingered on the stars. "No. We went exactly far enough. They attacked us. They destroyed our home. They thought we were weak. Now, the galaxy knows better." He turned to the operative. "And if anyone thinks they can challenge us again..." A faint smile curved his lips. "Let them try. Humanity doesn't just fight back. Humanity survives. And when we do, we win." For the Karzul, for every empire that had ever sneered at Earth, there was one unshakable truth now etched across the void. You attacked the wrong species. And humanity had just begun.